She gets extremely protective of our son about this. 5. She doesn't let our son hang out with his friends sometimes because the friends are too rowdy and come from uncultured families. 6. She doesn't let our son bike around the neighborhood with his friends at all. She needs to constantly be with him when he is hanging out. 7. She literally took his iPod and changed the music to what she considers good music. This consists of Justin Timberlake and Mumford & Sons, Macklemore, Taylor Swift type stuff mostly. Our son liked electronic dance music and metal a lot. This was one of the worst things she did in my opinion. 8. She thinks that I am too masculine in the way I act and constantly tries to correct the way I act, saying I have toxic masculinity in me. She uses this near constantly when I tell her I don't like how she babies our son. 9. She calls the cops on basically any crime she sees, including one time when we walked by a house party and she called the cops because underage drinking was happening and she wants to keep her community safe. One time she also called the cops because a few Spanish teens were playing soccer in the street and she just assumed they were up to no good. That made me insanely upset. Honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This has been her for the past 2 to 3 years and we have gotten into near constant arguments about this. I tell her she is too sensitive about nearly everything and then she goes off on rants and tries to show me all these weird articles about how what I am doing is gaslighting her. She also is trying really hard to act young. Like she goes to indie shows in Williamsburg filled with 22-year-old hipsters and tries to chat people up to make friends. Then when she gets rejected or something like that from those indie circles, she comes home and cries in my arms and is depressed for days. She wants so badly to be a part of that crowd. She seems to have anxiety and depression issues. I do honestly feel bad for her. She keeps up this insane persona. She describes herself as a modern-day hippie. She spends all her time checking out new cafes and brunch spots with her friends. I know how this started. She got a job at this new office filled with young yuppies. Basically right after that she changed into this, I think to keep up with her coworkers, but it's clearly turned into something much more devastating and self-esteem damaging than that. I just want her to be herself, not this crazy person trying to perfect everything around her to fit her worldview. Interestingly enough, if you have ever seen Season 3 Episode 1 of Black Mirror, she reminds me insanely of the main character of that episode, but more willing to disrupt everything around her to fit what she wants, even if it inconveniences others. But this is all recent. She was never like this 4 years ago. She was just a regular working woman who liked to relax and hang out and didn't take it much seriously like she does now. We used to get drunk at dive bars together. We used to party a bit even. It all hit a bad point about a week ago when my son, who also has been in conflict with her nearly constantly, got into a major argument with her. The argument was over whether he can hang out with his friends who were outside, and she said no because there were too many of them and she thought it was bad to hang out in such large groups. This is the type of crap she thinks about. I know she really didn't want him out there because the kids were mostly black and Spanish. But he is half Puerto Rican. He got so mad he took dishes and began shattering them on the ground. Then he left, and didn't come back for 5 hours while my wife hysterically cried and called the cops to find him. Since then, he is not allowed to leave the house, and my wife has cried nightly for losing our son. She has become extra horrible towards me and my son. She thinks I am on his side simply because I tried to defend him and say she was overreacting. But every time I say she is overreacting she has a breakdown and says I am just doing what men do to women. I don't even know what to do anymore. I know that this isn't her. I know that she has developed some serious mental problems in the past 2 to 3 years. I know this isn't normal for her. I don't want to divorce her, but I'm not sure if I can handle this any longer. She has broken down. She is in bed crying nearly all day. She will sometimes go off yelling at me that I am the epitome of toxic masculinity and then an hour later be crying in my arms saying she loves me more than anything. Is this some type of personality disorder? Does she need therapy? What can I say to make her calm down? I was thinking about writing a heartfelt letter about the way she has been acting. That way she can't interrupt me like she usually does with the screaming. I don't want to argue. I just want to make my point and have her respond. But I don't want to seem as if I disapprove of her entire lifestyle and everything she has done. What the heck do I do? I feel so passive in this situation. And she goes nuts when she sees me acting completely normal while she is crying or yelling or whatnot, as if every time she is acting crazy, I have to act crazy too about whatever she is crazy about at the moment. What the heck do I do? I do not want a divorce. I want to help her. We both still very much love each other despite this madness. Update 2 months later. Figured I would update this with all the craziness that has happened. My wife had an absolute breakdown at both me and my son and she basically ran away and got wasted at a bar, then came back and threatened to unalive herself with pills. Called the police. They came and by the time they came she was just crying on the couch, and the cops left. Didn't really know what to do. My son was crying and everything. I told her she has to go to a mental hospital or see a doctor as soon as possible, and she then got even more mad at me and then she went upstairs and just started screaming like an insane person. She did end up going to the doctor, who diagnosed her with B12 deficiency at a severe level. Just like you guys said. She has been taking pills, and I can't even describe what has changed in her. She went from an absolute downward spiral into madness and controlling everything to a just much more clear-minded, calm person. She sometimes feels weird about admitting just how wrong she was about certain things, and she said she never realized how blind she was to how horrible she was treating the people around her. She said her anxiety over things would sometimes spike through the roof, and she over-relied on blogs she read on the internet to help control her life. I am glad she has been able to admit these things. I honestly feel like some of it wasn't entirely B12 deficiency though. Or at least she might be retracking a lot of the stuff she did and said which had nothing to do with the deficiency. Like her going vegan was a symptom of the original problem, not like veganism is bad, that she was desperate to fit in with the young yuppie crowd. I'm not sure if she is purposely blaming all of her old weird problems on B12 deficiency, but that weird stuff started before she went vegan, so I think there was still some insecurity problems there. I'm just glad she has spent the last 2 weeks realizing how problematic she has been. She said she was like in a trance, where she thought the entire world was against her, and the things she read on the internet confirmed that there was some global conspiracy, as she describes it, to make her be a dependent person or some crap like that. I'm just so glad she is back. So glad.